Okay, this looks like it's working now. So, uh, yeah, Eric had used the link on Facebook, and I'd gotten a few people to sign in. I apologize. Technology is hard. Um, but it looks like I have it working now. Um, shoot, I'm going to check on my phone, see where we are. Okay. This did not go as planned. Um, for patients, this is the link. Do what? I'm going? Okay, cool. Okay, so now I can finally talk about stuff. Um, I'm excited about Warscribe. Those of you that have stuck around me for a while know that I had two other novels, Juniper Crescent and Hallow Terrace. And those, once they hit the market, had not the success I had anticipated. The hard part had been because I was writing what I thought the market would like. And it was disheartening to see all the work I'd put into these two novels just go right out the window. Um, you know, but my lesson with this was that I needed to write what I wanted to write, not what I thought the market wanted, because the market's weird. Um, the market is this great big amorphous thing that's ever shifting, constantly looking for a new fix, a new hit, something of that nature. And what I needed to do, regardless of what everyone else thought or what ideas were out there, was to write the story I wanted to hear, regardless of whether or not it did well. So that's when I started playing around with the ideas that evolved into Warscribe. Okay, we got a couple people here. Cool. I'm glad you joined. Um, I'm excited you're here to celebrate this with me because, like I said, this is the book I wanted to tell myself, the story I wanted to hear when I got the chance to hear it. And it had started as a competition, right? Or, well, not a competition, more like a challenge. So I had a coworker who thought that this one particular movie was the best ever and forced me to sit down and watch it with him. And it wasn't bad, but I pointed out, this could have been better here, that could have been done differently, and been a much better story overall. And we started arguing back and forth, and he said, well, if you think you can do better, do it. All right, and that started the idea that evolved into Warscribe. Right, and I'm kind of excited about all that. Oh, another person joined us. Hey, how are you? I'm glad you could join me. So if you leave comments, you got questions you want to ask, stuff you want to know about, absolutely anything. I can see your comments, and we can interact like that. So just as I was working on these ideas, and I'd started filling pages in my notebook with all of these ideas, I heard about National Novel Writing Month, or NaNoWriMo as it's shortened. And can everyone hear me clearly? I hope people can hear me. So I figured what better way to start getting this idea on paper than to use it as a National Novel Writers project. So I did. Oh, good. Hi, Jay. Hi, Brianna. Okay, cool. Thank you. So, for those of you who don't know what National Novel Writers Month is, you're given 30 days to crank out a 50,000 word manuscript. And some people do it on poetry, they'll do it on nonfiction, fiction, whatever. And mostly it's just a fun self competition to figure out what you can do. And I worked hard, but I managed to get it completed in time. It was like the day after Thanksgiving, and um, Megan and her father were watching me desperately trying to find the last words to get this together. All right, cool. And I won. What happened after that? Well, it started playing with some other ideas, and it kind of took a backseat while I was trying to market Juniper Crescent and Hallow Terrace. But once it became clear that those two novels had taught me what they're going to teach me, Warscribe came back up. Why not give it a shot? So here's where I have so many wonderful people to thank. Starting with, of all people, well, the least likely person to get me back into writing was a guy named Chris Rouchet, who does a webcomic called Shotgun Shuffle. And I just posted on Facebook, like, dude, is this even worth it? And he came out and said, dude, it's totally worth it. Lose whatever sleep you got to, make whatever sacrifices, get up off your butt and write. So I did. I pulled back my manuscript of Warscribe, started editing, and then another miracle took place. Her name's Honor Raconteur, and for years I'd known her by that name. I didn't know she had any other name except for this pen name that she had. And I knew it was a pen name, and it didn't matter much what her real name was. And she said, hey, I saw some of the mistakes that happened with your first two novels. Would you like us to just take a look at Warscribe, see if that's worth looking into? I said, sure. What's the worst that could happen? And people liked it. She liked it. She handed it off to an editor, and she liked it. And well, now there's something, isn't it? So Ashley, the editor, thank you so much. You have the patience near demigod status. It's wonderful. Man, she just harped on me, had patience like you wouldn't believe, and I think those three people are mainly responsible for the book that's now live on Amazon. And that's what I'm excited about, because here's the story I wanted to tell. It's an ancient war fantasy novel where it started off being a competition to see, oh gosh, how much changed in Warscribe from the original first draft. A lot, to the tune of at least 3 characters were deleted. There was another soldier that came in with Mathis and Corbin and Kierbrand. Their names were Hosea and Desde, and I liked them. You know, they were a good logic point for me. They kind of brought things back. They were kind of the standard that I based everything else around. But my editor pointed out, you know, we can't read them as characters. What are they good for? What are they adding to this? And so it became a better idea to push more character development on Mathis and Corbin and Kierbrand and Icarus than to keep Hosea and Desde, which they have a purpose in Berserker. That's the next book in line. But I've already transferred that role to someone else, other 2 people, which I like them more, and they already had more as a character than Hosea and Desde. Another thing that came about was I got to play a lot more with languages, which was a lot of fun. I still enjoy that. I enjoyed that before Warscribe came out, just fooling around with how words sound, how sentences feel. I listened to a lot of music that wasn't in English just because of how the statements were processed, if that makes sense. I'd hear a song in Indian about depression. I'd hear a song in Japanese about depression, and they're saying the same thing, but it's portrayed so differently that it was a thrill for me. So at the end, we get to see the burial ceremonies for the Indigo and the Glass Shamans. And that was me doing Google Translate versions of actual languages, which gave me a good basis to work off of. Even from the first draft, I had wanted the Indigo to have sort of a Gypsy or a Romani accent. It worked for them. That's immediately what came to mind. But being able to put that on paper, here's what that sounds like, really solidified who they were for me. Oh, speaking of Amos, one of the characters that was added is a guy by the name of Volti, who works with Pradesh in the Indigo Nation. They're going to come back. They're important people. They're going to be having an interesting relationship later on. And I loved working with them because, as the mayor described in the city, there are basically two schools of thought with Indigo magic. It's either building a gigantic colossus from several skeletons, or it's creating hundreds of little. Oh gosh, how far have you read? Amos, I did not mean to spoil things for you. Where are you at? Oh, hey, we're up to 10 people. This is awesome. This is thrilling for me because, well, several reasons. First of all, I've set in my mind that if this doesn't sell a copy, if this doesn't become popular, I'm okay with that. Oh, a couple of chapters in. So you haven't met the Indigo? Oh, man, I'm excited to tell you about this, Amos, because part of it is the story I wanted to play with. The other part is the world I wanted to create. So from that original challenge of create something better than this culture in the movie. Oh gosh, now I feel terrible. Now I feel terrible because I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I hate it when people spoil it for me, so I didn't want to spoil it for people. But the whole concept of world building has been amazing for me, and this is where I get to talk to so many people, and they don't know the power they have. I talked about this a little bit on my blog. All of the Indigo started from a basic question of why do necromancers get such a bad rap? And look it up on Google. Look it up on any movie you've ever seen anywhere. Necromancers will be evil, guaranteed. But that's not how life works. There's a lot of people that death is a sacred thing. It's not something associated with evil. Those who find a purpose in human remains after people have died. Oh, thank you. Hi, Stephanie. I'm glad you can make it. If Warscribe becomes a success, is because of Stephanie Allen. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, and I'm so sorry. She stepped up. She's got marketing knowledge, all of which I have no idea about. So if stuff gets successful, it's because of her. That fits so many ideas about death that actually exist in the world. Abreu. Okay, that is easy to do. I will never forget that one now. So Indigo, the Indigo. There's so many people where they describe their belief in death as simply walking into another room. It's returning to the earth that gave it life. Those all sound rather positive to me. So why just let it go to waste? So I wanted to create these skeletal remains as gifts, something to be honored. And man, writing that scene, writing this explanation in context of the book meant something to me. Because honestly, if we accept life, we have to accept death. Thus far, we haven't found immortality. I don't think we will. So, well, Now's a bad time to be talking about that. The world's in commotion. We're on a lockdown. I stepped out of my house today after 3 days of being indoors, and that's because the weather was nice. But we're on lockdown. We're seeing a lot of death, but we're seeing a lot of life too. And it's that acceptance of both that really made me want to play with stuff. That says it's an idea worth playing with. Yeah, yeah, it's desecration. Um, it's unholy. It is evil by nature. When even all the muss and fuss we go into burying a body says we're treating it like something sacred, right? How much does a funeral cost, ladies and gentlemen? You can have a Harley or grandma can die, right? We're dropping a body in a box. If you've had someone die recently, I really am not trying to be offensive, but that's how I saw it, right? And I wanted them to be treated like something holy. And I had this wonderful conversation with my little brother, and he thought it was wrong too. And so we went back and forth for hours on end. We didn't care about the video games we were playing. We didn't care about what was going wrong in our life. This conversation was wonderful. Oh, it was so cool. And at the end, it's like, this is good information. This is a lot of good world building. You know, Isaac, you could write a whole novel based on this. And he just kind of shrugged and said, you can have it. What? So that's why the indigo are important to me. And Amos, I'm not going to ruin anything else for you, but so once you get past that, let me know and I'll send you some of the artwork that inspired me. Okay, yeah. Jay, necromancy makes me think of voodoo. Yeah, I mean, we got the idea of zombies from classic voodoo, but again, we're really tight casting the idea of necromancy, and I wanted to break that. And pretty soon another idea came up. Well, why are we treating this idea like this? Why are we treating that idea like that? And I don't. Is it really spoilers if I haven't read the book? If I haven't written the book yet? I don't think so. So I'm going to share stuff. There are ideas already in play. I am actively working on scenes and stories and people based on these tropes that I think need to be destroyed. You know, for example, elves, right? You've probably seen me rant about this before. All the depictions of elves, they are skinny, highborn, proud creatures who are the protectors of nature, yet forge metal blades, which is the destruction of nature. Do you know how much earth needs to be dug up to find enough iron for that? Not protecting nature that way, dude. So, who in our world now protects nature or as seen as being close to nature? First thought that came to my mind were islanders. What do they look like? Large, fat, happy people. Why couldn't those be elves? They're actually protecting nature. They have a closeness with nature that, you know, white people never really had. So the elves are going to happen. My big fat happy Samoan elves. Because that's the way I think it should be. And the beauty of writing is it gets to be that way. Last one I'll talk about before I get back to world building, because I'm excited about this one. My favorite fantasy creature, someone asked me this, and it took me a while to summon the courage because, exactly, my favorite fantasy creatures are merfolk. Yet you bring that up, and everyone gets that stereotypical image of human upper half, unknown generic fish bottom half. That's it. Nature ain't like that. There is no such thing as a generic fish unless you're talking tilapia, which no one cares about. But look at the ocean. Pardon me. Look at everything that's in the ocean. Where are the lionfish? Where are the electric eels? Where are, sharks? Where are all of these wonderful, vibrant species. You turn them into merfolk and they suddenly cease to exist, but they deserve to. And you'll see them in Berserker. Okay, so time for a giveaway. Everyone who's logged in right now, randomly selected. Megan, give me a number.
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stephanie, congratulations. You have won a paperback copy of Warscribe. Okay, so there's one. I've got 2 more to give away throughout the rest of conventions. Because while I do believe that conventions are there for a purpose, I believe that those are ditches that we can dig so deep we can't get back out of them. And I don't think I'm going to be revolutionary or visionary in the world of literature by creating Warscribe and writing this stuff I got. So I had 2 goals in mind when I wrote Warscribe, aside from telling the story that I wanted to tell. The first one was making the side characters just as important as the main characters. Yes, and I admire Tolkien because he was one of the first modern world builders of our day for fantasy. I mean, when he set out to make The Lord of the Rings, he believed he was making a mythology for England, because all of the stuff that they had was borrowed from the Norse, the Scandinavian, the European, but England itself didn't, and that's what he thought The Lord of the Rings was going to be. But that became our prototype for all of it. The world builder that I love and admire, as you can tell by this array of paintings, is Sir Terry Pratchett. And his belief is that every character in a novel is the hero of their own novel. Right? So while I am the protagonist of my own life, how many side characters are more awesome than me? Statistically, they're going to be there. There's 7 billion of us, and they can't all be side characters. So that's what I wanted to do. And that was a huge part of how I built Warscribes, right? Could Anansi and Sana, the trainers, have their own novel? Sure. I'm building more of it up in Berserker. Could Kierbrand and Icarus be the stars of a novel? Sure. We go back out deeper into the army. Could Bali and Asphodel? Could Master Kanza or Radish and Volti? Ian, if you've been to the Glass Desert yet. Could they all be characters? Could they be important enough? And that was something that was taught really well through Sir Terry Pratchett's Discworld novels. I fell in love. There's only a few that I have not read. And there's a few that Megan and I have not read together. For those of you who don't know, this wall is all of the paintings that Megan and I have read out loud together. I just put the latest one up. It's just right up there in the corner. We've been reading out loud to each other for 7 years, almost 8. And man, the conversations that come up, you see everyone who doesn't get their own novel in a Terry Pratchett book, but are still wonderful characters. And that's something I wanted to emulate. Which, yeah, that's if my dreams could be put on paper right now. If you don't like the Warscribes, follow the Indigo. If you don't like the Indigo or the Warscribes, look at Jareb or the Glass Desert or the Ancestrals. There is a plot line in place that starts in the ancestral homeland. Or even, I've got a book that I'm got outlined and I'm starting to write in my random times about Maelstrom. You only meet him during the trials, but he gets called to be a traveler. And where does that take him? Right? So all those little ideas where it sounds off or a little odd, there's I put it in there for a reason. So I'd love for people to find the nation they love most, find the novels about them, find the stories about them. That's my goal. And Warscribe is the first of that. I know, I want to. This is amazing. And the oh man, the hard part is there are so many ideas, right? Sir Terry Pratchett said in an afterword on one of his novels that I make stuff up for a living, and the easiest way to do that is to draw from real life. How much backstory did you set down for each character? How much detail? Enough that I could hand it to an artist and say, draw this character and have them do so. Personalities, I started with the culture, right? So the Warscribes who live in Dendemar speak primarily the trader's tongue. You go to the Indigo, and they speak, I'm going to call it Google Romanian. Whenever I needed a phrase or something from them, I would put that phrase into Google Translate and have it come out in Romanian. And if I didn't like how it sounded, I would adjust that. Then I went down to individuals. If they were the star of their own novel, what information would they need? It's like looking at the end of a dowel. You're only seeing like a 1-inch circle, but there's a whole foot of it if you turn it sideways. A lot of backstory. And the best part is some of it happened on the fly. Some of it people gave to me, not even known about it. So absolutely everyone who will ever know me has influenced my writing. The purpose is write it down, and if it's not in a way you think they'd appreciate, don't tell them. That's why I keep a notebook on me at all times, and it annoys people, but I wouldn't be me without it. This is another reason I found where I believe I'm supposed to write. I've been listening to other authors, how they go about their processes, how they brainstorm, how he loves to use fountain pens, which, yay, that's part of the boat where I fit in. But I'm not going to say that validated the dream, which it says that I'm in the right boat. Maybe at the wrong end of the boat or at the wrong deck on the boat, but I'm in the right boat. So can never have too much backstory. The problem with backstory is how much of it's going to be in the novel, which if you look at Tolkien, I think that's his one flaw. I mean, even my literature teacher said, take the time, slog through Lord of the Rings. It wasn't enjoy Lord of the Rings. It wasn't delve deeply into Lord of the Rings. It's worth it to slog through because Tolkien has so much backstory he feels he needs to share. It's up to the author, though. If I have enough backstory that a random person can draw this, I think I've got enough. I mean, you can go to Pinterest and find hundreds of posts about thousands of questions you need to know for your character. I don't believe it's all necessary, but some people need that. It's a lot of stuff you're going to write and then forget about, or not forget about, but write down, use it for what you need, and maybe you'll need to use it again, or adjust it, or delete them. Sorry, Jose and Desi. How many books can we look forward to in this storyline? This storyline is in the Warscribes. I have 3 planned. Warscribe, Berserker, and then Presence and Partition. So first book, they'll go to Jereb. Second book, they have to go back home following a quicker route. And then, I'm not going to say World War I happens, but World War I happens in the third book. And there's going to be a couple of offshoot novels that will eventually tie into Presence and Partition, but they will be the start of their own lines, right? So I'm talking about Maelstrom, the Traveler. his actions in his novel influence presence and partition, but then, yes, exactly that one. Um, exactly, Stephanie. It's a companion novel, and it follows people from Dendemar, but it's not exactly a Warscribe line. Jim asked me about this and said, "What are you doing? Because they can't be fighting all the time." Well, this is where we get it. With Maelstrom, he's a traveler. There's not going to be war. He is a Warscribe, but a traveler. And there's already a novel where the main character is an ancestral, and she influences a lot of presence and partition, but not as part of the Warscribe line. She will be her own thing. So, looks like we need to hand out another book. Megan, give me a number.
3.
3. Amos Oyston, congratulations. You get a signed copy. And I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this one because I feel so much better about this one. There wasn't the stress. And yeah. See, that gets me excited because this is something where when it came down to putting the pedal to the metal, I was the one doing the work. So many wonderful people helped me and deserve all the credit, but I'm the one that sat and wrote. So I currently have, for the World of Calamar, 13 storylines, encompassing 5 different nations, plus interactions with 6 and 7 other nations. And in the coming week, I will be formatting and putting together a side story of the antagonist of Warscribe and how he came to power. So no spoilers, but it will be listed on Amazon soon. I've got all the information already because it was originally part of Warscribe, but too many people were saying they didn't like that breakup, jumping between nations. So that's going to be its own side story, and that will be on Amazon for free. Yep. How is the experience of crafting this book different from Juniper Crescent? A lot more world building, and the whole attitude behind it was different. Ooh, how do I keep track of ideas? I have a thoroughly over-organized Google Drive. So the experience of crafting this book different from Juniper Crescent, my whole mindset was different. With Juniper Crescent, it felt like I needed to get this done, but to the point of obsession. The first draft came out in record time. With Warscribe, my whole focus was, can it become the story I want it to be? I don't care how long it takes. And there are authors that are like that. You know, Neil Gaiman can talk about 2 or 3 months, have his first draft written and edited, and by the time it's on a computer, it looks beautiful and needs a little work. Versus, you know, someone like George R. R. Martin, who can look at the end of a year and say, well, I've written about 6 chapters, I'm doing good. And then you turn around and have people like Brandon Sanderson, who sneezes and 3 novels come out. So I have a thoroughly organized Google Drive, plus I try to use colors in my journals to keep track of different nations. It always starts off with the character I'm working with. As far as that goes, Terry Pratchett had 6 computer screens set up where he'd be looking at all these events, tracking it happening, because he'd be working with several groups of people. And let me introduce my partner in crime for writing this one. Excellent to listen to, or excellent listener. Here's my Bam Bam. We call him that because he can be rather destructive when he wants. He's listened to all my ideas and been very patient. And let me talk it up myself. Yeah. That's the other thing. For coding and computer programming, they call it rubber duck diagnosing or diagnostics. where they literally have a rubber duck that they talk to get through the bugs in the code. And you'll hear stories of people screaming, that's all it took, as they throw this rubber duck against the room. But the biggest part was having someone to talk the ideas out with. You don't need someone giving comments or throwing their ideas. We just need a sounding board. And so far, Bam Bam and my blind cat Helen have been wonderful for that. Yeah. He's reminding me he's got 2 teeth. And so he's heard more stories than a 10-month-old probably has room for right now. So gratefully he doesn't remember. He's not going to remember most of it. But he knows that Dad used voices and Dad tells stories, which, how can you complain about that? So I'm going to put the reminder out here now. There are more giveaways. We do. We use the same clippers. I take care of my own hair, and today Bam Bam got his own haircut. Thank you. And surprisingly was not stressed about it. As long as someone was singing a Sesame Street song, he could tolerate it. So there are other giveaways currently going on, but I'm going to give, till the end of the month for people to interact with them, because I got 3 copies of Warscribe I'm giving away tonight. Or well, the winners will be decided tonight. There is also going to be an Amazon gift card. That's for, what did I say? I don't even remember. That's terrible. There's an Amazon gift card. One of them was, I think, for hashtag Bookstagram, having to do with Warscribe, which that's an Instagram post dealing with, what your reading nook looks like, what book you're currently reading, what snacks you have with you, or some way that the book is leaking into your world. Yes. Okay. So, and the third giveaway, the nuanced chocolate bars, which I love. Okay. You don't have a server. You've got a connoisseur that comes to your table when you order nuanced chocolate. They'll tell you that there's more to appreciate and understand about chocolate than a glass of wine. And so they specialize in bean to bar chocolate creation. I love their shop. I love going there, and I love it when I can afford to bring a bar home. I've got 2 bars that I'm sending out to the best review. And it's not pandering to me. You can tell me you hate it, but as long as it's creative and memorable, that's where the best review's going to win. Right? So, and here's where you're going to make me, bleh. Here's where I sound like a broken record. Authors need reviews. That's our visibility. That's our ability to reach a bigger market. That's our ability to let the algorithms put our work beside other work. If it's popular, it gets seen more. If it's not, then you're going to hear a lot of authors talk about needing reviews, and it won't get seen more. So right now we're seeing everyone getting to vote with their money. This is what it's been for the literary community. That's what we need. So best review gets the nuanced chocolate. And I've still got an iTunes card that I think is for someone who posted about I need to be better prepared about this. Someone who posted about it on social media. Oh yeah, that's right. Had posted about Warscribe on their social media, gets the iTunes gift card. And I'm going to be posting the music that helped inspire me, or that I listened to as I wrote Warscribe, as a playlist. That's going to be free for everyone, but one lucky person is going to get an iTunes gift card. Which I looked at all the music that actually inspired me, and it's not always something that's like, hey, I'm going to take a walk and listen to this music, but it does have the inspiration factor. But that's what authors care about most, is getting reviews. Bring it up on Goodreads, bring it up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever platform you're looking at it from. authors need reviews. Yes, let me get. Okay, this is Helen. She was born blind, and she's my best friend. Like we don't say this is my cat, this is her cat, but this is my cat. We have three of them, and this one's mine. She was blind from birth, so she doesn't know she's missing anything. And if I'm still for more than half an hour at the table, I get scaled, and she will rest on my shoulders, especially while I type, because she knows I'm not moving for a little while. And she likes being up. So she gets to deal a lot with me cursing under my breath and trying to figure it out and trying to find other words that mean the same thing. Yeah. I mean, I wish I could be as adaptable to stuff as she is. She doesn't know she's blind, but she is the most adventurous cat I've ever met. She's the first one when she hears the door open to wonder who's coming in. All the other cats are like, nope, door's opening. That means I got to go away. What mainstream series would I compare Warscribe to? Okay, I see your question, Stephanie. Let me answer this one first. I'm not ignoring you, I promise. Specifically the Warscribes, it would be comparable to 300. I mean, that's what I base the culture on. That's what the stories goes to, except instead of going to Thermopylae and facing the Persian immortals, they're going to another nation to destroy an enemy they know nothing about. And Helen is in one of my stories. There's a gal from the Glass Desert, and she leaves the Glass Desert in her own car to just figure herself out, and she brings her cat with her, and the cat has an attitude. I based this character on a woman named Anna Coleman Ladd, who actually existed, and during World War One built faces for people who came home from the war and honestly believed they were monsters because they couldn't go home the way they were. And plastic surgery was, I don't know, not even in its infancy. It was still in utero. Which, there's a fun thing. So many wonderful people have given me ideas for books, and they don't know they are. And real life is a wonderful inspiration for fiction. The problem is fiction has to be more believable than real life. That's the struggle anyone who writes fiction has to deal with. It must be more believable than real life. Yeah, I think 300 had some decent world building. It was mostly a montage, but expand that a bit, make it for young adults, add magic or a sort of magic, a power that can be tapped into. And that's I don't know, is that accurate? Is that what we're seeing with Warscribe? Let's see. What else are we doing here? Let's not type characters. I made myself notes, but it's apparently not enough. What did you read for inspiration while developing Warscribe? Oh gosh, there's so much. So much went into that one. Obviously, I did see 300. That was the movie a guy said, make your own version of it if you think you can do better. I was watching The Deadliest Warrior at the time, which was so much creativity. I mean, just the knowledge of what weapons are out there. Terry Pratchett, obviously, there's no way I can get around not having Terry Pratchett as an inspiration. And I think the most interesting part was a passage in the New Testament. I mean, it offered a significant amount of information. So much so that I can't simply call it a biblical inspiration. There's an experience I had while I was up in Canada as a missionary, and we were talking. Heard you mention once the idea came from Egyptian scribes. That was part of it. Yeah, the idea of scribes on the battlefield intrigued me so much I had to research it. So in ancient Egypt, there were scribes, and that was like being a rock star back in the day, because if you could make it as a scribe, you'd have a good life. So here's where the Deadliest Warrior comes in. Thanks, Stephanie. The Shaolin monks had a weapon called an Ame Piercer, EMEI, for those who are Googling it. And it looks like about a foot long dagger. And it's got a ring in the middle that slides onto the finger. And it was a distraction because they could spin it and then stop and stab with it from either end. And then I saw a bunch of vintage fountain pen nibs, and it all just kind of, let's make that work. But the coolest bit of inspiration came from both the Deadliest Warrior and the Armor of God passage in the New Testament. Because I have some ability to draw, and so I'd been recruited to draw the Armor of God while we talked about it in this meeting. And they paused me at some point and said, "Okay, Tony, you're drawing it wrong." And I had drawn this character wearing the Armor of God with a katana style sword instead of the traditional English longsword. And the guy stopped and said, "No, how do we know that's wrong?" And he derailed this whole conversation to all the varieties of swords that are out there. And I drank it up. It was so wonderful to see. And he brings it back and says, we all live in specific areas, so we all have a specific set of circumstances. Why aren't we using the full variety available to us? It's like, oh gosh, why can't we play with that? Why don't we hear more about chakram and rapiers and mangosh and all these wonderful weapons that are out there? I'm not saying this because I'm a psycho. I'm saying it because humans have such a wonderful depth of creativity, and we're not using it. It's just like with food. There's 5 or 6 staple crops we have out of the hundreds of thousands that are edible and tasty. We're not using them. Why not? Because it doesn't look like our prototype. So let's see what all's out there. That's what I wanted to build up in Calamar. What's out there? Am I talking too fast? It's a lot of information that I'm really excited about. How did you come up with the names for characters? That is the most ethereal process for me. It's a name that just sounded good, or I just played around with noises. This is one of those things where I'm pretty sure I annoyed people with it. Because I'd say, hey, what do you think of this name? I don't know. I'm okay with it. How about like this? Where's that from? And it ended up being, it's just a noise that I liked. Gratefully, it worked with Jasper, because I like the sound of Jasper. And it turns out it's a family name on Megan's side. But something like Mathis, I like the name Matthias, but it just sounded too long. I was lazy. Corbin is actually a name, but it fit the character. And it's that ethereal fit I was looking for. So you look at all the characters, there's Hebrew, there's African, there's Chinese, Japanese, and it's just the noises that sound good. I wish I could say there's something profound in all of that, but there really isn't. It just sounded good. And thanks to the beauty of social media, I now know there are other people that deal with that too. So there is some solace there. And it gives me room to make up my own names like Kilandra. I like the name Kilandra. I don't know if there is a culture that sees that as a name at all. Did any of the characters' names change? Um, it's more like they started with several names until I narrowed it down to the name that fit. So, oh gosh, there's like some of the glass shaman names, Yuan Mai and Kilandra. I had a couple of names I was playing with, and I'd always have that name off to the side until something changed, an event happened, a new piece of inspiration came through, and well, gee, that changed stuff. That sounds pretty good. And then there was just that epiphany moment. There it is. That's what it is. It doesn't matter that it's, one of the most ancient African mythological names on a white gal who's a scribe. That's the name that fits. I know it in my heart. So that's what it has to be. So one of the trainers is Anansi, who is the storytelling spider from African mythology. And that just fits. That's her character. Interestingly enough, the one name that I knew right off the bat and didn't have to play with was the Secanto. As soon as that character hit the paper, I knew he was the Secanto. Someday I might think about giving him a name, but that's going to be like a way, way ancient past type situation. Am I going to write my son into the series? Inevitably, it's going to happen. As a 10-month-old, it might be more the stories of parenting, but I need to see who he is first. And I know he's got a lot of personality, but everyone's already guaranteed me that that's going to change. So I need to see the changes. That's the one thing I've learned to embrace: failure and changes. Did you visualize any particular actors or actresses for any characters? More like after I created them, I could see actors who could play them. That's something I'm particular about because I've seen that work really well and really not well. Like in The Princess Bride, the author knew right off the bat that Fezzik was Andre the Giant. That worked. That was wonderful. But for Cornelia Funke's book Inkheart, she knew right from the beginning that Brendan Fraser was the main character. And I don't think that worked as well. So here are the people I've got so far. Chromic, one of the elders, Jason Momoa. You give him some wicked scar tissue, maybe some streaks of white through his hair. He could do Chromic. Charles Dance for Darden. I only know Charles Dance as Lord Vetinari from the Going Postal movie. But that attitude, that personality, that's Darden. Oh gosh. I haven't seen any actors that could be people like the Patriarch or the Mayor. Keatani, that's his name, which is a Samoan name. Radish, if you gave Henry Cavill some scrub, thinned him up a bit, gave him a prosthetic, he could be Radish. It's something I hadn't looked too much into. Who is your favorite character to create? All of them. Ask me to pick a favorite child. The most fun was the Secanto. He's just, his mentality is so far from the norm. But it was fun to look at. I've talked a lot about wanting to learn new things, wanting to see outside the norm. He's that embodiment. What does a person look like who's collected it all and knows so much? The the best experience I had creating a character was the antagonist, the automaton, because it was devoid of humanity. I won't say it was devoid of life, but it had life. Just because I had to fill my mind with his thoughts, its logic, which you can all see in the story, in the short story I'm going to be posting soon for free for everybody. Most of the characters I made was an amalgamation of people I know and ideas I wanted for people. So I get the right stream of nostalgia. There's Kierbrand. Corbin is my older brother Joel. Once I let go of my ego and my past with him and wanted to develop a good future, that's who Corbin became. Is who I wanted my older brother to be. And so I'm not going to use this as some big, deep psychological thing, but he's the person I enjoyed writing. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And it's that creation that I enjoy the most out of this. It's mixing everything the world has to offer in a new way. Like, inevitably, there's going to be someone who looks at this book and says, well, it's just 300 of magic. True. In literary terms, there's no such thing as a new idea. I agree with that. Just like there's no such thing as a new ingredient, yet restaurants are still wonderful places to go to. It's not necessarily that the ideas are new, but what you do with the ingredients, right? So it doesn't matter if it's some tiny little hole in the wall stand in Caravaggio, Venice. That's still some amazing pizza versus a 5-star Michelin restaurant. When you ask people to like your pages, call it a Warscription. I like that one. That's funny. Yeah, it's been about an hour. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I thank you all for coming to this celebration. This means so much to me. This is me stepping back into the literary world. So what questions do you have? I'm going to keep talking, please. If you have questions or anything like that, sign on. He wants chocolate's amazing. Is that Bam Bam? Someday, I hope to be popular enough that an author talks about my book. Like, not just an author like I've written a book, but an author like, you know, he starts an Instagram account and immediately has 176,000 followers. You know what I mean? Like Brandon Sanderson. Someday I want him to talk about Warscribe. That would be like the epitome of success for me. So, looks like that about wraps it up. Thank you all for coming. You're here for a new chapter in my life, and I'm glad you got to take part of it.